Welcome to Waiver Watch episode 10 on December 19th, 2020. We are 107 Waivers, and each week we review some of the most interesting waivers of the past weeks. However, we're going to switch it up a little bit. We have a special guest with us today, Roy Boyd, and he has a unique waiver that we discussed in our previous episodes. We'll link those in the bottom. And so we're going to get right into it. We don't want to keep Roy waiting, but as always, we do have our letter sponsors of the day, and they are COA, which is COA, and that is what you get when you have an airspace authorization. So it stands for Certificate of Authorization. And we're just going to move on right from there. Jakey, hit us with the waiver totals. What do we got?
Yeah. All right. So it is January 19th, everybody. Just, we are in the right month here.
Whoops.
So January 19th, 2020. Don't worry. We're not in the past here. But yeah, waiver totals for the week. So we had 21. There was 20 for 107.29, 1 for 107.29 and 39. That was a combination. And we've actually dug into those before in episode 5 and 6. So feel free to go back to those and learn a little bit more about those. And so we're kind of gloss right over those for the week. And like Brent said, we have a special guest with us this week. It's our 10th episode, trying something new. So we have Roy Boyd with Boyd Instruments and Supply Company. How you doing this morning, Roy?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited to have Roy here because he has a 107.39B operations over human beings. This is, Jakey, this is only the third one ever granted, correct?
Yeah, and I don't think we realized that at the time. This was like episode 4 when we covered this. And we were kind of sitting here this week going, actually, wow, this is like really cool. It's only the third one. And we kind of ran into Boyd. So, hey, you want to join us on the show and talk about it? And he was gracious enough to accept. So, maybe if we just
background?
give him a shot to kind of say, like, who is Boyd Instruments and what are they doing with this waiver,
Well, we're a survey supply house based in Pennsylvania, and we got into the drone industry back in, I think, 2014, 15 with a 333. Been flying construction sites and quarries mainly.
Yeah,
very, very nice. So yeah, it sounded like it's a family-owned business too. You guys have decades of experience in a very tight-knit business.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
It's all family. My father, mother, and brother and sister-in-law started the business, and then I came into it about 2 years after they started it.
Very nice. So that's awesome. That really just shows like the depth of your company. We can tell the company means a lot to you guys by being, family run business and, super successful over the years. What type of like typical like projects do you work on with your drones?
Mainly topos on construction sites before, during, and after the construction, and quarry inventories.
Okay.
Because it's safer in the quarry and the construction areas to fly them than have people running around all the equipment.
And your survey as well, right? Your company does traditional surveys, right?
No, we just sell the equipment and repair it.
Just sell survey equipment. So, but you're well versed in the traditional survey methods.
Correct. Yeah, and all the flights we do are for a surveyor.
Very nice.
An individual surveyor or the surveyors working for the companies.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. So very well, like drones are integrating very well with traditional surveyors it's adding to their job, right? It's not taking away from their job. It's making their job easier. They're able to collect better data and all that.
It makes it easier and safer.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the waiver doesn't really specify which aircraft, and we always take guesses at them when we're just talking to ourselves about these things. But do you mind telling us which aircraft is being operated, Roy, and what you guys do with
Falcon
those?
Falcon 8 Plus.
Okay.
Which is the Intel Falcon 8 Plus.
Right.
Very nice. So you sell and you service the Falcon 8s, right?
On the TopCon side, yes, we sell, and I went through the factory training to be able to do warranty work on them also.
Okay, so if any of our listeners are out there and they want to know a little bit more about the Falcon 8s, they can definitely contact you, huh?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. We don't see those out in the wild too much. When I was talking to Roy before, it was like I've never actually seen one, and it seems like maybe they're not so popular. But Roy was telling me he's definitely a fan of them. They're reliable. They get the job done. So maybe kind of an unsung aircraft out there.
I mean, it's got triple redundancy in just about everything. And then has 2 rails with 4 motors on each rail, and each rail has 2 speed controllers in it. So it'd be really hard to lose a rail and have the plane come down. There's too much redundancy in it.
Right. Which I guess goes into the safety case when you're looking at operations over human beings, or in this case, operations over vehicles. So
yeah, what was that?
Yeah,
what was that like? Like what was the process like for you? Going in to get this waiver, the fact that you're asking for, to waive the Section B of operations over people, which is the moving vehicles portion. What was that like?
It was interesting. I applied for it, and then I referenced our 333 because we had a COA for this in our 333. It was part of our 333.
Okay.
So I referenced that number and figured that would be enough. And also that the equipment had the mine safety and rollover protection. They came back at me and said I didn't list any specifications for the rollover and stuff like it, and the mine safety. So I had that was the first request for more information.
Okay.
So I had to reference all that, and then I sent that in, and then they came back at me and said I didn't reference what energy the Falcon would have when it hit one of those pieces of equipment. So we had to punch the numbers into the formula we had for the system we were using in the 333 and come up with the what it would in terminal velocity, what it would be when it hit the equipment.
Okay.
Which is well below what they're protected for.
Yeah. So you had to send the specs of typical pieces of equipment on site, saying, hey, did you have to say the glass is tempered and it's
I sent them the specs for the rollover protection, the federal specs that they had. And the same for the mine safety. I didn't go, because it's hard to tell what piece of equipment's going to be on the site. So I sent them the specs that were listed. I forget the number, but I sent them the numbers for those specs.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then I was trying to be vague about where I was going to work, and then they came back at me and said I had to give them specific locations because I wanted it for any closed quarry or construction site.
And they weren't quite ready to give the entire freedom, right?
No.
Yeah. So you had a total of 2 RFIs to get this through?
Between 2 and 3.
Okay. About how long, when you first started your submission, about how long from the time you started to the time you got approved? Was it 6 months, 3 months?
About 2 months. A little bit over 2 months, and a lot of that time was me sitting down and trying to figure out what I wanted to reply, how I wanted to reply.
Okay. Yeah.
The strategy, the RFI strategy.
And figure out what they wanted, what they were really looking for. So,
when you went to ask for this, did you think you were going to get it, or no? You were like, no way, this is the FAA. They're not going to go for this.
Well, not no way. This is the FAA, but they've been issued on with parachutes, but nobody makes a parachute for my drone.
Yeah.
Right.
So you
sitting there I doubt if I'll get it, but I mean, I went through all the safety features. It'd be impossible for me to lose 4 motors at one time on the same. And the redundancy, the magnetic protection. This thing has some protection in it for magnetic interference.
Okay.
I've taken off from parking garages with all the rebar and actually an old steel mill with
Okay.
steel all over the ground, and I have no problems with the compass.
Yeah. So so they probably considered, the fact that the Falcon 8 is, definitely a robust bird, and there's a lot of engineering money that went into that aircraft.
Right.
So yeah, there's so many things for the FAA to consider when, making the judgment call on whether or not they want to approve. And, the fact that they restricted you to a couple sites, not, gave you blanket approval across the U.S. for anything.
Well, and it's interesting too that so the Falcon 8 doesn't have a parachute, but when they give parachute waivers, it's only for 10739A over people. So actually the parachute probably wouldn't even do anything for you in this case. And, when we,
how hard it was for a while to get any kind of new waiver over people.
Yeah.
I mean, people were applying for them and getting turned down. And I'm sitting there like, I'm applying to fly over moving vehicles. So, I can see them envisioning somebody at the FAA envisioning me flying down a 4-lane highway. That's what I was trying to stress in the application. This is a closed site. Nobody has access to it, and
and it's just like what we had kind of, I guess, taken a guess at. So we weren't too far off when we were talking. Well, this is a construction site with heavy machinery. The machinery's moving slowly around. There's not people just wandering around in this mine, that you have to worry about. So, yeah, I think it's a totally reasonable request, and glad you were able to push it through there.
And getting this request too, like I'm sure your clients are super happy because you're able to kind of keep the quarries running now, right? At normal. So So that's probably like
huge benefit. Yeah.
Was that the main driver to getting this? Was that you didn't want to shut down production?
I didn't want to shut down production, and also I didn't want to violate any regs because it was fairly easy to shut down production, but every now and then you had a guy that had to come back to the office. So you're flying along and then a vehicle goes underneath you. You have to stop flying. So I figured this would ease that.
Clear that up for you, right? So then you're good, you're approved, so that when and if it happens, right, you're good to go. Right.
And then Thursday I applied for airspace authorization at a zero grid. It's on the flight path of 2 airports.
Okay.
And I have authorization to fly there, but I wanted to get an authorization to attach this waiver to it.
Okay.
And I got that within a day.
Very nice.
Awesome.
They're turning those around quickly.
Yeah. So maybe kind of last question on that note. What do you have any waiver plans in the future? Like maybe get the rest of your mines or any of the other regulations that you're looking at waiving?
As I add quarries and fenced-in construction sites, I'll be applying for those.
Sure.
Which I think will be a lot easier to get now.
Right, because you have something. You have something in your drone zone account to say, hey, we've critically thought about operations before, and we're one of 3 holders of operations over moving vehicles. So I mean, like that's a huge deal that you have this that shows that you're a top, very high level operator, and that you are able to justify to the FAA how to reduce your risks in order to do these operations.
That actually reminded me kind of a funny thing. So one of the other 3 10739 Bravo waivers was issued for a demolition derby. Like somebody flying over a demolition derby. We were kind of laughing about that the other night. So
I suppose,
no problem flying over cars when they're smashing into each other, right?
Yeah, the justification is like these guys are T-boning each other. I think a drone is the least of their worries.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I kind of figured I'd get turned down for the zero grid yesterday, but I applied and just said, here are my 2 waivers that I already have for this. Here's the waiver I already have for the grid, and here's my 10739B.
Yep.
And pretty much that's all I said in my request. I gave him the height I wanted and stuff. And I got an email in the morning from a lady, and I had clicked night by accident and didn't apply my nighttime waiver.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, just send me a copy of that. And then I got an email back a couple hours later saying that the airport manager doesn't want any night flights, and if you're okay with that. And about an hour later, I got the airspace authorization.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's good. That's nice to see things are turned around quickly. So
Yeah.
It's a lot better than it was when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
So
speaking of night,
yeah, why don't we? So kind of, Roy, every week we always go over 2 waivers, and so since we were talking about yours, we just wanted to dig up another one. And
the waiver vault.
Yeah, we call it the waiver vault. So this is one that we pulled out. It's actually a drone light show waiver. So we talk about Intel. They're well known for their drone light shows, and we actually went over one of their waivers. But they're not the only ones. There's actually other companies out there that do this. And so we went and dug up Firefly Drone Shows. They're a company out of Michigan. They have a 107, 29, and 35 waiver. But what do you think about drone light shows, Roy? We're pumped about them, but what are your thoughts?
I think they're pretty good. I'd like to go see one. I mean, I live in a real rural area, so they don't have any up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they're interesting. I've seen them on TV and stuff, and it's amazing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they have to have operations of multiple small unmanned aircraft, which is 107.35, which is like kind of the challenge to the drone light show is how do you get that advanced waiver? Because there's quite a bit that has to go into your safety case. So, kind of like how you had to go and get this 107.39B waived, you provide a lot of information in order to get these approvals. So we're interested to see how drone shows take off, drone light shows, because there's a big challenge with 107.35 for sure.
Yeah, I think as they get more history behind the drones, they might ease up on it, because right now they don't know what the accident factor is going to be.
Yeah.
Super good point there, huh? Like it's new, right?
And they actually limit. So that is one of the provisions in the waivers. Usually they limit the area beneath it, closed access, just like your mines. So you have to actually control the boundary just in case one were to come down or whatever it is.
Right.
And what's interesting about Firefly, so Intel does huge shows, of course, but Firefly got approval to do up to 250. And the interesting thing is they have to have, this is actually a waiver provision, they have to have 1 visual observer for every 20 drones. So if they do their full 250 drone show, that takes a minimum of 13 visual observers. Talk about a crew resource management nightmare, right? But
right.
Kind of a interesting provision there, but yeah. So anyways, that's kind of our second waiver for the week. Dug back and into the waiver vault there. So
that's what we have. I think we'll probably wrap it up right here, but we want to thank Roy for coming on the show. We're going to link his information and his website, company website, below in the comments. So, if you guys want to know how to get a Falcon 8, Roy's experience in that, he can hook you up. He can tell you all the details. Any other questions you might want to ask Roy, maybe he'll be available. We'll have to see, right? I'm kind of putting you on the spot there, Roy.
Yeah. Don't want to commit him to anything, but
would you? Yeah. So if with Roy's permission, we'll put his contact information, maybe an email, website.
No problem.
Yeah.
We'd love to give him some more business. So he is the man with the plan to get you the 107.39B. So hire him up if you want him to come survey your quarry, give him some more work. So.
All right, and on that note, we will sign off and catch you guys in the next episode next week.
Yeah, take care and fly safe.